Stress, sleep and the nervous system, how they can influence tinnitus perception. Many people with tinnitus notice that stress, poor sleep or fatigue seem to affect how noticeable their symptoms feel. Now in this episode I'll explore how the nervous system, stress response and sleep patterns are often discussed in relation to tinnitus perception and why these factors can influence awareness of sound. Now this is an educational discussion, not medical advice. Stress and sleep are two of the strongest influences on how tinnitus is perceived. The key word there is perceived. Tinnitus doesn't exist separately from the nervous system, it is experienced within it. That means anything that affects the nervous system can influence how noticeable or intrusive tinnitus feels. When the body is under stress, the nervous system shifts into a more alert state. This state is designed for survival. Attention narrows, muscles tense, the brain scans for potential problems. In that heightened state, internal sensations can feel amplified. Tinnitus can become one of the signals that receives more attention, not because it has changed, not changed dramatically that is, but because the system processing it has become more sensitive. Stress does not necessarily increase the physical signal associated with tinnitus. What often changes is awareness and reactivity. When someone feels calm, the brain filters more efficiently. Background sensations are deprioritized, internal sounds may still be present, but they carry less urgency. When stress rises, that filtering system can feel less effective. The brain treats more signals as important. Tinnitus can move from the background to the foreground very quickly under those conditions. Sleep interacts with this system in a slightly different way. Sleep is when the nervous system resets. It helps regulate mood, emotional processing, and sensory filtering. After a poor night's sleep, many people notice that everything feels sharper or more difficult to manage. Patience is lower, focus is harder, emotion tolerance is reduced. In that state, tinnitus can feel more intrusive, even if the underlying sound has not changed. Fatigue reduces resilience. When someone is well rested, they may have more capacity to redirect attention away from tinnitus. When exhausted, the ability to shift focus can feel weaker. The sound can seem more persistent simply because mental energy is lower. This is one reason why tinnitus often feels worse during periods of long-term stress combined with disrupted sleep. There is also a feedback pattern that can develop. Tinnitus feels intrusive, that creates worry. Worry increases stress. Stress increases nervous system activation. Activation increases awareness of tinnitus. This loop can make tinnitus feel like it's escalating, when in reality what is escalating is the stress response. Understanding this loop is important because it separates perception from injury. The nervous system constantly moves between activation and regulation. When someone feels safe and relaxed, the system shifts into a more regulated state. Attention broadens, internal sensations lose intensity, external engagement increases. In that regulated state, tinnitus may still be present, but it often feels less dominant. When the system shifts into high alert, tinnitus can feel sharper, closer, and more difficult to ignore. That shift does not necessarily mean change in hearing, it reflects a change in nervous system tone. Chronic stress can also change baseline perception. If someone remains in a heightened state for weeks or months, sensory processing may feel more reactive overall. This doesn't mean permanent escalation, it means the system has been operating under strain. When stress reduces over time, many people notice that tinnitus becomes less central in their awareness. Another point that's worth considering is that stress is not always dramatic. It doesn't have to be a major life event. Low-level, ongoing tension, things like deadlines, uncertainty, lack of routine, or even constant background busyness. This can keep the nervous system slightly elevated. When that state becomes normal, people sometimes stop noticing the stress itself, but they may notice its effects. Tinnitus can be one of those effects. The nervous system doesn't distinguish between physical and psychological load, not very cleanly. It simply responds to pressure. If that pressure eases gradually, perception can change gradually too. That's why some people report that during calmer periods of life, holidays, slower seasons, times of stability, tinnitus feels less intrusive, even though nothing specific was done to the sound itself. That pattern reinforces the idea that perception is dynamic. It moves with the state of the system, recognizing that movement can reduce the sense that tinnitus is unpredictable or out of control. Often it's responding to shifts that are already happening in the background. Sleep plays another subtle role. Late at night, when the environment is quieter, there are fewer distractions. Attention turns inward. If someone is already fatigued and mentally tired, their capacity to filter internal signals is reduced. This combination, quiet fatigue and inward focus, can make tinnitus feel stronger. Again, that reflects context. It's also important to recognise that not everyone experiences a strong connection between stress, sleep and tinnitus. Variation is normal. Some people notice clear patterns, others see little connection. The nervous system is individual and tinnitus exists within that individual system. Recognising your own patterns over time can make the experience feel less unpredictable. Tinnitus is influenced by more than just sound. It is influenced by attention, emotional state, physical tension, fatigue, and environmental context. Seeing it within that wider framework allows changes in perception to feel less mysterious. When perception shifts, it is often reflecting the state of the system, not a new event. Understanding that broader picture can reduce fear. If tinnitus feels more intrusive during stress or poor sleep, it does not automatically signal damage or progression. It signals that the nervous system is under load, and systems under load behave differently. Over time, learning how your stress levels and sleep patterns interact with tinnitus can reduce uncertainty. And when uncertainty reduces, emotional intensity often reduces as well. Tinnitus does not exist in isolation. It exists within a living, adaptive nervous system. As always, these discussions are educational and grounded in lived experiences rather than quick fixes. Thanks for listening to this episode of the David Health Podcast. If you'd like to follow future discussions, you can subscribe for upcoming